Oh, now okay. Okay, before any of you guys get triggered by the title of this video, let me explain. Yes, there's objective ontology, what clearly is the facts, reason, reality. I get it, I know. Because here's the thing, people, I believe, are under the time-old misconception that, our reason and logic, our prefrontal cortex, our logic brain has got its hands on the steering wheel, and emotions are like some child, trying to grab the steering wheel off us and steer our lives, and they often crash us into walls. And I think the perspective is different. I think the perspective is really that your emotion, your limbic system, your animal brain, your biology, all of that stuff, all of that reflexive stuff that often you feel you have no choice on because it's just a reflex. That's driving all the time. And your logic and reason, all it can do is be a signpost. All it can do is be the terrain under the wheels of the emotional driver. Logic doesn't have its hands on the steering wheel. Logic is negotiating with your limbic system. Logic is negotiating with emotion. Whether or not it's just a convenient thought model, it's about the only thing that makes sense to me. I mean, the time-honored tradition of kicking yourself when you're on autopilot and you keep doing the wrong thing, to me is not as constructive as realizing that you're not driving. The conscious part of you that's being rational and trying to make the best decisions are trying to have a conversation and negotiate with your emotions and your biology and all of those baked in things. Which brings me to story and narrative. There's a fair few intelligent content creators out there, far more intelligent than I, that eschew emotion. It's a binary thing. There's emotion on one side, which is the female domain, and then there's reason and logic, which is the male domain, and never the two shall meet. And I think that's a shame. The intelligent out there will say, story and narrative, stories are for children. Grow up. We don't need that. We need to grow up, and all we need to take heed of is facts and mathematics and maps. And that's how we should live our lives. But I always then say, okay, then who are you talking to? Why should I pick that map? Why should I value 1 and 1 equaling 2? Yeah, it makes perfect sense, but why should I grasp it? How are you going to motivate me? How do I integrate that? And this is the thing that story does and narrative does well, the very human side, that integrates these facts into us to develop our ethics. They need to mean something to us. They can't be sterile, scientific, cold and robotic facts. It can't just be cold reason. Story and narrative, I think, and history has proven this, is the best way to integrate and internalize the important things into a human being. And philosophy is the clearest example of this. Philosophy is not just concerned with the what, not just with the best what, but more importantly with the how and the why in terms of us. How do these facts spear us through the heart? Those things that compel us to change and develop virtues and feel proud of our lives and feel strengthened, The facts don't move you. The story moves you. I mean, even some of these very analytical content creators, when they just talk about, the red pill ideas in such a cold and clinical way, they'll always imbue a little bit of color at the end to clarify and tie up their opinion in a neat bow by referencing an anecdote that happened to them. And that's what eases us as human beings and go, now I get it. Yeah, that happened to me too. Or even if it hasn't, I can go, I can understand how that happened to you in that situation. Logic and reason being the path that is displayed before emotion and bias and routine. That's been the history of, elders mentoring the young into becoming men. And today, with no male mentorship, that's why the statement "be a man" rings hollow, because there's no how, there's no story, there's no relating. I mean, at the end of the day, thinking measures, whereas feelings end up valuing something. So whatever is logically presented, whatever the facts are, they need to convince your biases, your biology, your animal brain, your limbic system. They need to convince that infant, if you will. It's just a process of logic continually trying to convince emotion what's best for it. It's the continual process of the mentor teaching the student, if you will. I mean, choose whatever concept works for you. But I think just recognizing that your animal brain and your emotions are really steering you, and that your logic is just trying to map the territory and have a negotiation of the best path to take. The best way to do that is through a story, through a narrative. Anyway, the older I get, the more to me it seems it's not a binary thing. It's not a emotion versus reason. It's a conversation through story to get emotion to do what's in its best interests. Anyway, I thought it was a concept that was useful, rather than just kicking yourself that you took your responsible hands off the steering wheel and the kids got to drive the car and ran it into a wall. No, the kids are always driving the car, and the parent is outside trying to direct where he drives. I hope it was useful. Talk to you later.